Open your mind and journey through the cosmos of the universe. This is Bridging Realms with Dr. Jean Carlisle and False Freedom 691.
For this week's episode of Bridging Realms, we'll be having a more of a somber tone, I would say, because this is an anniversary. It's a very sad anniversary.
One of the most earth-shattering events in American history.
Yeah, we're talking about the tragic attacks that happened on September 11th, 2001, henceforth known as 9/11. Big day, especially for conspiracy culture, I would say.
Yeah, I really felt like conspiracy culture had taken a step back after the death of Bill Cooper, but, post 9/11, a whole new breed of conspiracy theorist was born.
It's very true. 9/11 now, if you search through your podcast app, it's going to be on a lot of podcasts this week. A lot of people talking about it, and it's a huge conspiracy. So let us first say, from Bridging Realms, from the Bridging Realms project, for me, Dr. Jean Carlisle, and I'm sure I can speak for False Freedom, we want to, express our deepest condolences. We don't talk about this in a light manner. It was a national tragedy. However, we want to acknowledge that while also acknowledging that there are a lot of questions from that day. It is one of the biggest conspiracies of all time. So today, this is a sensitive subject. We are coming up on the anniversary, so this week we wanted to talk about this. False. I'm sorry. Are you eating chips?
I worked a double at GameStop today. I really didn't have. I just didn't have time to eat.
No, that sucks. But that's really loud in my headphones. There, I was trying to.
It is.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't really hear it.
It's picking it up hardcore. I don't know how you're not hearing that. But I mean, I know you need your food, but yeah, it's picking up a lot. But I mean, you're on the boards there, so if you're not seeing it, if it's not picking up, then we're probably good. Maybe I'm just picking it up.
Can you take the lid off this dip for me?
Oh, for sure. French onion?
Yeah, it's a balanced dinner.
Made with real sour cream. Alright, there you go. This is not an appetizer, this is your full dinner?
Yeah, this is dinner.
So welcome back to Bridging Realms. We're diving deep today into conspiracies surrounding 9/11. This is something that my podcast partner here, False Freedom 691, has been very involved with.
Yeah, as you know, I actually used the numbers for my screen name. I get censored and I have to drop the other one.
Right, when our screen names and everything got wiped, along with our previous episodes discussing 9/11 also got wiped, False Freedom had to change his username. He was previously False Freedom 6911.
I lost all of my Reddit gold.
Right, that name was legendary, and I was really sad to see it go. This one is a little bit more family friendly, and like we'll be talking about in this episode, conspiracy is in the mainstream now, so we don't want anyone to be offended. I know False Freedom doesn't give a fuck if anybody's offended. Most of the time I don't, but I do want to be a man of 2019, you know? I do want to be woke as much as possible, you know? And, you know, go by... you know, I want to put out the good vibes. I want to put out the good cosmic vibes and get those good cosmic vibes back. And just, you know, be a good being. That's what we all want to do. False Freedom has a different view on life, I guess, in some of those regards. But he's about exposing truth, and that's where we link up. We're both about exposing truth. He really is about exposing truth when it comes to 9/11.
Yeah, that's for sure. 9/11 is very dear to my heart, and really helped set me on the conspiratorial path. It's very important that everyone knows the profound impact that it had on me. Where were you on 9/11, Doc?
This is actually a crazy story, but I was actually in 9/11.
Wait. You were actually in 9/11?
Yeah, I was standing there in line waiting for, you know, I was going to get a coffee and donut, and, you know, saw everybody freaking out. You know, it's like, what's going on? And you know, I saw on the TV, you know, saw the second plane hit, and everybody's just, you know, losing their minds, like, what the fuck's going on, you know, and just running out of the convenience store, and I'm like, fuck, dude, I need to pay for this coffee and donut, dude. I don't want to just steal this. So yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Are you sure you were in 9/11? That doesn't really sound like.
I'm sorry. I was in a 7-Eleven. So yeah, I was in a 7-Eleven convenience store in San Bernardino, California, and saw that all go down. And I did pay for the coffee and donut, and then I went home. What about you, False? Like, what got you into this being your, you know, granddaddy of all conspiracies?
You know, I, like most every other American, was very prideful initially whenever the attacks happened, but...
Oh, of course, yeah, fuck yeah.
You know, I was a freedom fry pusher. I was into all of that. But
yeah, I called French fries freedom fries for years after, and then really
Yeah.
I just cut down to fries, man.
Yeah.
I don't even say French; I just say fries.
Yeah, just fries.
And that feels most American, really. But
yeah, it's really a rebellion against French overlords for sure.
yeah.
But I got real into the early days of YouTube, and specifically the documentary film Loose Change.
I hear you on that.
Which
Okay.
even got played on CBS. I mean, it was a pretty
Right.
big deal.
Yeah, that was probably like the second 9/11 documentary I saw. My first was 9/11 in Plain Sight.
Yeah, I think things kicked off with the 9/11 documentary shot in 2002, 9/11. It was narrated by Robert De Niro. You know, really big, powerful documentary by a Frenchman.
Right. So there's been a ton of documentaries put out there. It became a big kind of genre almost for these 9/11 conspiracy documentaries. Just to list a few here, I mean, like you said, 9/11. There's also 9/11 Press for Truth.
Being Osama.
Fahrenheit 9/11.
Hotel Ground Zero, which seems like an awful location for a hotel, you know, considering the other stuff that's gone down in the neighborhood.
Right, not a good themed hotel there, I don't think. There was also The Secret History of 9/11, which I know aired on CBS.
Bush Family Fortune. The best democracy money can buy.
Hijacking Catastrophe.
102 minutes that changed America.
Toxic clouds of 9/11.
The Cats of Mirakatani. You know, that's a really odd title for a 9/11 documentary.
Yeah, are you sure is that a 9/11 documentary for sure? Conspiracy documentary for sure?
Yeah, let's read a little bit about it. It's about an 80-year-old Japanese painter who was living in Lower Manhattan. So they found him, and he was still painting, like, right by the World Trade Center. And he was, like, covered in soot and building remain and all that.
Shit.
And, this actually sounds kind of sad. So now I'd like to take some time in the show to delve deep into the conspiracy theories surrounding 9/11.
Right. We want to briefly, talk about what got this, on the conspiracy map. We do want you to go out there and do your own research. We encourage that. Check out those documentaries we listed for you. But we also want to inform you here on the Bridging Realms podcast. We're going to do more episodes about this, of course. This is a huge conspiracy. And it's ever growing. We get new information.
Yeah, and one of those bits of information is about steel beams specifically. Doc, you know much about steel beams?
I don't, and I've heard this going around the internet. This has become like a bumper sticker kind of slogan thing for the 9/11 truther movement. It's jet fuel can't melt steel beams. So I do know that. I know that supposedly, jet fuel cannot melt steel beams.
Yeah, and if you had ag class growing up, they would have known that already. Anybody who went to a rural school and had ag class, everybody who goes to ag class knows jet fuel can't melt steel beams.
Right. I didn't have an ag class, but I had a lot of physics classes, and I do know about melting points. And I think the movement has a point here. They do. There's a lot of engineers, a lot of scientists and engineers out there who have spoken out about this and formed organizations and coalitions and stuff like that. You can look that up. A lot of scientists and engineers that think they agree with you that jet fuel cannot melt steel beams.
Yeah, and there's some bullshit artists on the other side that are maintaining that it didn't have to melt the steel beams. It only had to bend them.
Okay, so just bend them enough to cause, the damage, and then there's, free fall and all that stuff.
Wouldn't you have to melt them to bend them, though?
Seems like you'd have to get them pretty hot and melty, for them to bend and be malleable, per se. And this is research that we here at Bridging Realms have done. That's what we do at the Bridging Realms Project. We take this donation money that you, the listener, give to us, and we do this research so we can bring you this information. And we have spent a lot of time and money, first of all, just trying to fucking get steel beams and jet fuel. That is not as easy as it sounds. You cannot just order them on Amazon or anything like that. So, False had to go to some shady places to get this jet fuel and these steel beams, and we did the work. It didn't turn out exactly like we expected, but we did the experiment.
Yeah, to speak to the difficulty of getting the products, it's kind of one of those blacklisted things where you can't get both of them in your shopping cart at the same time,
Right.
And then you go up to the cashier, they call the manager, this is another guy with jet fuel and steel beams.
Right, that's going to get you on some lists. That's going to check some boxes, And now, we're putting this out there, yes, but we're not scared anymore. We've already done the research. It's over. If they're going to come after us, they're going to come after us, But we have our connections, and this is what I'm saying. We have our sources. and we got these large amounts of jet fuel and steel beams, and we did these experiments, and I mean, we can confirm. I mean, False, do you want to unveil like what we know from our experiments?
We know that if you dip a steel beam in jet fuel, doesn't bend, doesn't melt.
Yeah, nothing actually happens there. We actually soaked one. We do what we call the pickle test, where we actually pickled a steel beam in jet fuel. Nothing melted. We did do one final test where we did realize we needed to ignite the jet fuel. And that, I will say, like, False lost some eyebrows and most of his pubic hair.
Yeah, my grill only goes up to 500 degrees, though.
Right. The grill only goes up to 500 degrees, which is where we put the jet fuel. So it did not, I'll tell you that, it did not melt steel beams. But we did have some kick-ass burgers and chicken wings on that thing. So definitely a controlled demolition there on the buildings based on our findings here at the Bridging Realms Project. But next, False, let's bring up the Pentagon.
Yeah, so the Pentagon was also hit by a plane in the official story.
Right.
But really, all signs point to a missile.
Right. If you haven't seen it, we'll try to put this in the show notes. There is security footage out there. It's in all these documentaries. It does not look like a plane. Does not look big enough. The flight pattern doesn't look right. Plus, there was no wreckage, right? I didn't see any plane wreckage.
Plane wreckage.
But there was at Ground Zero, and there was in the field, right? That Flight 93 crashed into.
Yeah. Yeah, and Flight 93, if just take a small detour onto that, the Let's Roll guy.
Now, this is a controversial topic here that False got a hot take here.
Yeah, basically, I think it's government-manufactured propaganda on Let's Roll, to be honest with you. I think they just took it as a rallying cry and pushed us on into the Iraqi war with it.
So, do you think it was all, like, manufactured? Like, this was, like the moon landing. They filmed this, and this was an actor yelling this rallying cry?
Yeah, I think they just, they needed that rallying cry. It really didn't come out for a couple days, and they were like, come on, guys, we got something. They got the best writers that they have in politics in the room together, and they just shot out different catchphrases, until they popped on Let's Roll.
Of course, we've seen the government manufacture shit like this in the past. We know that Neil Armstrong went through several. He was just rattling shit off up there on the moon before they settled on one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, right?
Yeah, he didn't even have a writer's room with him, so he's just sitting there fucking, going through anything he can possibly say to sound cool when he steps foot on the moon.
Yeah, guy's a pro. He's just up there riffing. He's not dealing with this heavy scripting that is going on in our mainstream media today.
I expect my man Neil was throwing in some dick jokes and some inappropriate stuff that he knows it's not going to make it to air, but he's just throwing it out there, showing his talent.
Right, he's just playing to the crowd, he just met those extraterrestrials up there on the moon, so he's just probably, he's just trying to make them laugh and make everybody in control laugh and just really lighten the mood.
Yeah, he was on a soundstage. Let's clarify that. He was on a soundstage.
And there's the two sides of the coin, if you will. There's the two differing opinions, the differing realms you get to hear here on Bridging Realms. Because I believe, we went to space, we got on the moon there, and we met some extraterrestrials. That there's maybe secret base on the dark side of the moon that now I'm sure China's fucking with. But False is of a differing opinion. He's in the fake moon landing camp.
Yeah, I believe space isn't real, the moon isn't real, and if you believe anything like they are real, you're a fucking moron.
And that's the kind of playful banter that I love here at Bridging Realms, and that's the kind of stuff that you're going to get, those spicy takes from False Freedom 691. It's what he's known for. So that's the ruling there on the false, some false flags and some of the stuff that could have been faked in 9/11. What else do we have on the docket for this national tragedy?
Yeah, up next we have Building 7. So, a lot of controversy with Building 7 as it also collapsed, and yet, unlike Towers 1 and 2, was not hit by an airplane.
Right, you hear a lot about the two towers and the damage that they caused, but not as much about World Trade Center Building 7 that fell for absolutely no reason. It seems like a totally unrelated thing that is somehow related.
Yeah, so that lends further credence to the controlled demolition theory that basically something went wrong and the hologram that was supposed to hit Building 7 didn't work out exactly. So then they still had all the explosives on timer, so boom, it just went.
Yeah, that's a theory. There's, they said it was from building fires, that a building fire caught and burned down to the basement or something. Very suspicious. Also, the offices that were held in Building 7, some very important offices, and supposedly some offices that held a lot of important documents pertaining to our government, and some black ops stuff. So it seems like a lot of the documentation for letting 9/11 happen or orchestrating this event could have also been taken down and destroyed in the event, which totally makes sense. So this brings us back to another one of our Bridging Realms experiments where we're getting into the lab, we're testing these theories to give you the definitive answer on some of these conspiracies, or as much as we can give, because you can only trust what you can verify, which is what a bunch of conspiracy culture goes by these days. So we wanted to test Building 7. This building, it fell much like a controlled demolition, much like the two towers, but it did not get hit by a plane. They said it was an internal fire. So there's no jet fuel in there, right?
Right, correct.
There's no jet fuel melting these steel beams. What melted it enough? They said that it took the floors out, but there's still steel beams there in the floor, right?
Right.
So what kind of fire? We thought, this is an office building, so it must just be like a shit ton of paper and, desks and maybe furniture. And they were old, so maybe like some asbestos and shit. So the only comparable place we could find to do this experiment was False's mom's garage.
Yeah, and it's also loaded with important confidential paperwork. Lots of Social Security information, my collection of Heavy Metal magazine.
Right. So the stakes were just as high, right? This is very important information. Luckily, we did get some of the more important things out, like your collection of Heavy Metal magazines and stuff. Not all the tax information.
No,
we were we able to get out before the blaze really took hold. But we did learn that, starting an office fire per se with a bunch of old papers that have been sitting and drying out and for a long time, like in a garage like that. That thing was just a fucking tinderbox, really.
Yeah, it was.
It was just waiting to go up. It caught fire so fast. So we did burn down a lot of the garage, but really we were able to get it under control, I'd say, or the fire department was. So I think we've really debunked Building 7 there. Don't you? I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
it didn't fully burn down your mom's garage. I thought that was a success.
You know, what would any conspiracy be without Rothschild involvement?
Oh, of course. I mean, they're all over the place.
Yeah, so the Rothschilds are half owners of the Zim Shipping Company. The other owners are Israeli. The Rothschilds had Zim Shipping Company pull out and break their lease with the World Trade Center 2 weeks before 9/11. And they spent $50,000 to break this lease.
Holy shit.
They wanted out of there. And just right before 9/11, they pull out. The Rothschilds knew what was going on.
Damn, just 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You know, I've done that with leases before. You know, I've gotten out of rental situations because, like, the fucking floor was caving in, and I knew it and had kind of contributed to it by allowing my cat to dominate me by just pissing on the floor wherever he wanted to because he didn't like his litter box, and I kept trying to change him, but you know, his will was stronger, and he just, you know, pissed in the floor, and it, you know, just seeped right through the wood floor and started really rotting it out, and I knew that shit was going, so I broke that lease and got out of there.
Well, let's put the theory to the test a little bit then. 2 weeks after you moved out, did it get hit by a plane?
No, actually, it didn't.
Yeah, so this is not coincidental at all. Rothschilds knew.
So thank you for joining us this week, listeners. We here at Bridging Realms wanted to do this episode, though it may be a little bit more somber than our normal episode. We wanted to commemorate the anniversary of the 9/11 conspiracy.
Yeah, it only comes around once a year, and you've got to commemorate this momentous event in conspiracy for sure.
Right. False was telling me to commemorate these sort of things, it is called a cash-in episode. So we wanted to cash in on the 9/11 conspiracy. So if you're cashing in this week or wanting to remember the 9/11 conspiracy, we encourage you to sit back with maybe your favorite 9/11 conspiracy documentary, like we mentioned earlier. Make sure not to get caught in the mainstream media trap. We want to warn you that they're going to be showing you a bunch of news coverage, a bunch of remembrance packages, a bunch of films this week. We remember some of these films that came out after 9/11, really just a few years after.
Yeah.
And it's complete government shill shit, you know?
Yeah, these aren't hard-hitting, like, journalistic pieces or anything. They pretty much stick to the official narrative and just live off that. So they're really not going to enhance your mind any by watching them.
No, it's even like taking their official narrative and blowing it up even more into this, you know, false, scripted, you know, dramatized version of their version of events. So, you know, if you come across like Oliver Stone's World Trade Center with fucking Nicolas Cage, do not check that out.
Right. Paul Greengrass's United 93.
Right. There's also Flight 93. There's several of them that are similarly named. I mean, really, it should give it away that there's a movie out there called 9/11 starring Charlie Sheen and Whoopi Goldberg and Gina Gershon. And it's perplexing. We might have to watch it for the show so you guys can see what the media is putting out there. Extremely loud and incredibly close.
Yeah, even the Disney Channel original movie Tiger Cruise. And you know, going back to one of the first movies we named, World Trade Center, WTC, Nicolas Cage followed it up with another shameless cash grab, Left Behind, which is also a 9/11 film.
So keep your eyes and ears open this week, listeners. It's a big week here for conspiracy culture with this anniversary of the 9/11 conspiracy. And it's a big time in conspiracy culture too. So just stay vigilant, stay skeptical, keep believing, and keep bridging those realms.
Bridging Realms is a part of the Bridging Realms Network in association with the Bridging Realms Project, with additional support provided by realmies like you.